Yes, hello everybody, and welcome to another edition of Full Course Yellow, the In-Pit Lane after party, the very after party, because In-Pit Lane now on at the brand new time of 8 o'clock Tuesday night. I'm getting so confused about what week is what and what time slot is what. I was talking to somebody today and talking about, like when the show was going to air, and I just automatically just said, oh, it'll go to air on next Thursday night, and I went, oh, hang on, no, it won't. No, we've changed that now. But anyway, welcome to Full Course Yellow. We'll bring in the comments in just a moment and say hello to everybody once we get a few more people on board. Bit of a quiet lineup tonight. We've got I think we're going to be outnumbered. I think we're by the people who are commenting there. There, g'day Mark, how are you? Mad Cow Mark is joining us once again. We got David Howard. Good evening to David. Box, thank you, Box. Good day. I hope everyone is well. Well, those of us who are here are well at the moment. Unlike Daniel Ricciardo, unfortunately, we'll talk about that in a moment as well. Also to Roy, g'day Virtual Art, evening all. I don't know if you're going down to Phillip Island on the weekend, but we might see you down there because that's where I'm heading down tomorrow. Actually, Phillip Island for the historic classic. Russell is joining us once again. We've got also coming up Andrew, and nice to see Andrew. Got a few people today. G'day to Tom, and nice to see you, Tom. Nice to join. Nice of you to join us, and to Ben as well. G'day Ben, how are you? And somebody called Pids Media, who I have no idea who this person is, but he has a print running, so it's very loud. That's Stuart. So Stuart is not able to join us. He's doing mad scientist stuff. So who knows what he's doing then. Roadie's racing. G'day to you as well, and hope you're well and. Everything's going well there. But anyway, let's bring up the crew, as we said, who are joining us tonight. And we've got Pete. We've also got Chris as well. So as I said, quiet night tonight. But not sure Doc, Dave, and Stuart and Richard not joining us this evening. But I mentioned Dan Ricciardo not running tonight in the first day of testing for the official pre-season test in Formula One. Pete, have you heard anything about it? I mean, what's the situation that you've heard?
I've just heard that he's unwell, and they're saying that he will do tomorrow's, but I've just heard that he's unwell. So I don't know if it's the thing that we don't mention, but yeah.
The disease that dare not speak its name.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, we lost people. I mean, as Pete well knows, I mean, we lost people from the crew on, Sean, our director, and his partner Sarah, who's the camera op on the show. We lost them as well. So it's not, it hasn't gone away. I mean, we don't know. I don't think they've got it, or they were just feeling unwell and went. Yeah, because what do you do? I mean, you're feeling unwell. It's like, no, I'd better go get tested just in case. And you go get tested, and it comes back absolutely negative, and it's like, that's fine, but you can't take the risk, can you?
No.
You got the little rapid test kits that you can buy and take home.
Yeah, I've got them. I was using them at the tennis. I was working at the Australian Open, and you had to do them every day at the Australian Open. I'm not sure how reliable or otherwise they are. They seem to, but I was fine every day. But so I've still got a couple of them here. But I haven't been sort of crook enough. I mean, the thing is, I mean, they said, like, oh, if you've got sort of, if you've got a headache or if you've got a sore throat, if you've got to run in, I've got that all the time and have had for most of my life. I mean, it's called, it's living my lifestyle. So, so that's unfortunate. As I said, coming up, Formula One coming up, and Pete, have you caught up with the photos of Mercedes yet? Mercedes have sprung a bit of a surprise on us. They've turned up with a car that is somewhat different from what we saw at the launch, and even more radically different from even what we saw at the pre-test in Spain. So
In a little bit, but it's hard to see what the areas that are of contention.
it's the side pod area that they're working on. It's a very, very small side pod area, and it looks very different to what anybody else is doing. And what people are trying to figure out today is this just sort of is this just some gamesmanship on behalf of Mercedes, where they're coming up with this absolutely wild looking thing in the hope that perhaps some other teams will go, oh, we got to do that, we got to do that. Then when they get to the opening round, I mean, they'll just go back to normal like everybody else. But
the Williams side pods, I noticed, actually seem to me also to look quite thin as well.
Yeah, I've heard that they've got a few different things as well. I haven't seen the Williams as yet. I mean, the testing is going on as we speak, and I might try and bring up some of those figures later. Incidentally, for Stuart who's watching at home, I have found the into Formula One timing. There is an API, so something we can on GitHub, something that could be played with perhaps at some stage. We've got there Tom saying covering any Formula Ford over the weekend. Yeah, I mean, we're not covering anything specific down at the island, but I imagine with I think there's almost 40 Formula Fords running around on the weekend, so it's a big field. Over 400 cars, I believe, are there. So we'll certainly be waving the camera around at some of those. Probably the Tirana, the Peter Brock race there, the Tirana GTR XU1. Celebrating a birthday, and there's going to be a race specifically just for XU1s. So we'll certainly be waving the camera around. We're not sort of covering the races as such. It's just for news on Tuesday night. But when our special guest is Nathan Hearn who'll be in action not this weekend but next weekend. Also down at Phillip Island in the Trans Am car, and he was our guest if you watched on Tuesday night when we recorded our interview with Nathan, and really nice, really nice guy, interesting that he's just running the Trans Am at the moment. Again, he was just saying that. Well, I won't go into too much detail, but he was saying about the difficulties of swapping really between the S5000 and the Trans Am car. They're such radically different cars that Gary Rogers Motorsport and Marcus Ambrose, who's sort of helping them out in terms of driver training, suggested it might be an idea that they break that up. So he's going to do he's going to do some races, but you'll see that Tuesday night on In Pit Lane at 8:00. Stuart's saying, of course, yes, Stuart's got to put in a pro Mopar comment as well. There will be an E49. There'll be E49s racing in the historic touring cars. So there you go. Tom's saying 57 Formula Fords running around on the weekend.
Very good.
Now the Virtual R is saying that Roy's saying the Kalorama Rally is that the steam engine thing, Roy? Because I know Doc was saying that if he wasn't going down to the island, he was planning that's where he was going to head on because he was a bit disappointed in missing out on that. So and I think that's what he was. I think that's what he was doing. Okay, Tony joining us once again as well. But anyway, so that's so Formula One in action in action this weekend in terms of testing. So just keep an eye out on that. I'm not sure, Pete. Are they covering it on KO? Is the Sky coverage on?
There was it's it was a little hard to follow, but they did a deal with Bahrain that for the test only limited media were allowed to be there. Some deal between having the pre-season, the other tests at Jerez and a test at Bahrain, and they only wanted limited media at Bahrain. I think something to do with so we can have a big launch for the Bahrain race or something, you know. So,
yeah, that'd be right. It'd be happening.
but sorry.
Yeah, that'd be happening. Television rights at the moment are causing all sorts of chaos right along right around the world of motorsport. I mean, we're in a position that like we're not sure exactly what we can cover and where we can cover it. I mean, whether we can go down to the Shannon's Australian Motor Racing Championships. Not 100% sure. Someone who might know, someone who knows these things, has joined us, and that's Dave Stillwell. G'day, Dave. How are you?
Very well, guys. Just joining
Hello,
you
Dave.
from the Ramada Resort at Phillip Island.
Former in-pit lane sponsor for many, many years. Hello to everyone at the Ramada Resort. So you're at the Ramada Resort. I'm staying at the youth hostel, which is funny in so many ways. But anyway, it'll be interesting.
Named for irony.
Yes. But anyway, so were you up at Sydney Motorsport Park last weekend, or?
No, I actually had my stepmother's 70th birthday, so shout out to Jill and all of Jill's friends and the family members who joined us. We went to a winery up in Warrandyte, so that was it was a very pleasant celebration of 70 years young for my stepmother. But and then on Sunday night, I actually went to the Oz Cycling Austral and Madison, like the national track cycling race at a velodrome. So I was almost motorsport free for an entire weekend. I did have the Supercars streaming on KO in the background. So
the Austral Wheel Race, of course, was one of the biggest cycling events in Australia. I mean, as I remember as a kid, it was probably even bigger. I mean, when I was growing up, the Austral Wheel Race was a really, really big deal.
It was a pretty big deal, and there were also it was pretty intense. The women's final was quite intense, and including the Madison race, which is trying to explain that. Like, you think explaining sports cars or touring car racing is difficult. Try explaining the Madison scoring system and how the countdown works, and it's like watching roller derby but on track bicycles. It's very intense.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Paul van der Acker has joined us, saying that Sky F1 has testing live in the UK, which is interesting that they're not running it on KO then. So
I believe that's to do with the contract for the telecast. They weren't doing testing in Barcelona; they were doing shakedowns.
Yes.
The official testing is happening in Bahrain, and they themselves own the television rights or television distribution rights for that testing. So very, very different kind of television production.
So they wanted more money. So probably.
That would be an outrageous thing to suggest, Brett.
Yes,
No,
I mean, it's not as if they don't have enough of it, but But anyway, so that's a shame. Well, Dave popped on and Dave's popped off again now. So, but he is coming to us from Phillip Island.
He's explained that a lot better than I did.
Yeah. So
No, I was just switching to a pair of Bluetooth headphones so I don't have to yell at the screen.
there we go. Yeah, so that's going to be interesting to see what happens over the next few days. Of course, we have one change for the test, and then another change for the actual race, and that of course is the Haas team, where for the Pietro Fittipaldi is going to run the test, I believe, but for the races itself, everything old is new again. The return of Kevin Magnussen.
Well, they certainly made sure they kept the seat insert lying around, and they already know how far they need to put the pedals from the seat insert. So he does what it says on the box, and they can slot him straight in. Obviously, the previous teammate to Kevin, of course, is Romain Grosjean, who's got a full-time deal in IndyCar this year. So they couldn't exactly go and get Romain back in the car.
Yes, well, that's. I think it makes sense. I mean, and I think it will be good for young Mick Schumacher as well to have a more experienced pilot behind the wheel, rather than, because there was lots of talk about sort of bringing through one of the young guys, including possibly Oscar Piastri. I'm glad that they didn't. I'm glad Oscar didn't get it. I think he's going to long term his career is going to be much better served by doing what he's doing at the moment. He'll be getting plenty of education and plenty of input as to what he needs for next year. When I'm sure he will have a seat. But
and last time around, Kevin Magnussen did give Haas a couple of top 8 finishes. So
yeah, I mean he's quite he's a very talented. He's a very talented driver. I mean, it's a shame that I mean he was heading it off to race with Peugeot in Le Mans, but that's been delayed. The Peugeot thing has been delayed for a little while, so it looks like that he won't be. They'll easily find someone to replace Kevin. I'm sure Kevin eventually will be behind the wheel at Peugeot, or at least back at Le Mans. I'm sure at some stage that he wants to race with his father at Le Mans one time. That'd be something. And they are. I mean, the Magnussens are just huge at Le Mans. I mean, Jan Magnussen. Like every time we went, it's just the grandstand is a sea of orange, and it's just there. He's absolutely worshipped there. It's like everywhere you go is there's chants and the flares are going. They're just so for both to have both Jan and Kevin in the same car together at Le Mans would be absolutely huge. But anyway, that's there. So who watched the Supercars on the weekend? To be honest with you, I must admit I pretty much forgot that they were happening until I sort of got in the afternoon and flicked around the television and went, oh, that's right, yeah, they're on.
It's almost as if there's been other things occupying the public media space in the intervening period that might have distracted from our attention on the track in Western Sydney near the tip.
Yeah, it is hard to it is hard to keep track of what's going on. It's fairly trivial. I was just speaking to a journalist today from a general sort of journalist today, who just said that this is just dominate, and you've got the difficult position at the moment if you're a journalist is to, especially here in Australia, is how much you actually cover this situation, in the Ukraine at the moment, and how much is too much and how much is not enough, because there's been so much misery around because of the COVID situation. And then we get over that, and now to sort of pile into this, it's not what we need. That's why we need the break, and I think that's one of the reasons why the crowds, like for the Grand Prix, are looking so good at the moment. I was checking today, and Sunday's completely booked out, and I believe Saturday's pretty much is almost gone. Saturday and Friday are both very heavily booked again.
Well, how many new grandstands did they build for this year?
Well, they haven't built. They've got a couple on the way. In fact, some of them appear to be ones that are returning from back in the heyday of the event first kicking off in Melbourne in the mid to late 90s. I actually cycled around the facility on Tuesday night. Monday night, one or the other. Tuesday night, and it's looking very impressive. There's quite a lot of new facilities on the other side of the lake. The AGPC is going very hard into the event because, of course, it represents 3 years, 3 events worth of missed opportunity rolled into one. Combine that with brand new cars, a fully revamped fully re-steeled circuit, substantially revamped circuit. I can't wait to work that event in a month's time.
Yeah, it's going to be good. We're trying to get. I'm trying to organise to get Andrew Westacott to come into the program. Andrew, of course, has been pretty much a regular. As we said, we've called him a part of the. Basically, we put him on the crew list because he's joined us so many times. He's always been very good. I haven't heard back from them. I've sent a couple of emails, but I haven't heard back from anybody. There's been some big changes at obviously between the last time the race happened and between now, there's been some changes in their media department, and we used to have a really good relationship with the people who were in the media department there at the time, because some of them were ex-RMIT and RMITV people, so they didn't sort of ignore us, but now we seem to have dropped off the radar. So trying to get back on the radar and hopefully get Andrew in within the next few weeks before the Grand Prix to talk about, because he's got one hell of a story to tell. I mean, just not just in terms of what's happened, what's happening this year, but of course, what's happened in the last 2 years. It's as they say, may you live in interesting times. Boy, they've been interesting, all right. Pete, did you have a look at the supercars on the weekend? What did you think?
I did. Yep. I thought it wasn't bad. I think they've got the configuration of the super soft tire right, but still the same. The cream rises to the top, but I prefer the longer races to the shorter races. I don't really like the 120k races, so I prefer the 300k races, or at least having one on a weekend. So you have maybe a 120k race and a 300k race, or twice that on the Sunday. But yeah, so I liked it, and there were different drivers coming through at the start, but of course the season ones put the super soft tires on at the end, and of course they rose to the top. But throughout it was interesting to watch, like Andre Heimgartner and people like that come up. And
yeah, it's interesting. There's, as you say, the cream rises to the top, and we're seeing sort of the regular suspects are there. But it seems like at the end of the year we had Erebus really came on strong, and it looks like that's going to be the case. They're genuinely, Will Brown and Kostecki are both looking like they're going to certainly challenge for race wins, and that's a good. That's a good sign. The team that actually really struggled seemed to be Tickford. They seemed to be well off the pace for a change. So I'm not really sure what happened there, but they were not up at the front where they usually are, and they were being well and truly outpaced by most of the other Ford teams. So that was a bit disappointing for them, but. Yeah, I mean the race. Once again, I mean the race under the lights, as I said in the past, those lights, as far as I'm concerned, I don't care what anybody says. I think those lights at Sydney Motorsport Park are not up to standard, not for television. I mean they're fine for the race, but for television purposes, I can tell you now that if back in the days of Kerry Packer. If this is what happened out at Calder for the Nationals for the drag racing, if they'd have been sent out, they'd have waved the light meters around at Sydney Motorsport Park and said, no, we need some more lights there, and there, because there was lots of areas that it just wasn't where it was far too noisy. But anyway, it looked good for people who went along. Unfortunately, of course, the crowd was very disappointing. But then with all the rain they've had up there and continue to have up there, I imagine that there's a lot of people who said, "Nah, we'll sit this one out." I think.
Yeah, and I wonder if people thought they might get a repeat of last year on the Sunday, where they canned it completely, but they assured everybody that wasn't going to happen, but you still have a doubt in your mind as to, and especially when it flooded early on Sunday morning. There was turn 8 flooded, so you thought,
Yeah, I saw like John Bow. John Bow posted some shots from down there, and it was just. And he was saying at the time, he said, "Oh, guys, I'm not sure this is going to go ahead." So the fact they got any racing in was pretty impressive, and also the fact that it was so sodden on the outside. The fact that there weren't more sort of really big accidents there, I thought was really good for most of the categories, but particularly the supercars, because it was once you got off into that, once you got off the black stuff, the stuff that wasn't black was very, very muddy and slippery indeed. So, yeah, they did. So that's one way of making sure people stick to track limits.
I was going to say, question for the group: if JB drives his Tirana on a really, really wet track and it moves the water out of the way, do we call that a bow wave?
Oh, oh. Okay, boom, boom. That's the first for 2022.
Look, I was going to say as the group's already mentioned, Cream rising to the top. She was, business as usual on Saturday with the usual suspects. Shane Van Gisbergen stamping his authority on the championship or so. We thought, with a debut win with Jamie Whincup in the team principal role, his new engineering relationship with Andrew Edwards, who's recently arrived from Brad Jones Racing. Thank you to Pips Media. There we go.
Media.
But wasn't Sunday a dramatic reversal of fortunes for Triple Eight? Where Shane didn't qualify well, threw it off the road, made a rush decision to switch to wets when didn't stay wet for quite long enough. Ended up, I think commentary was quite insistent. He was 1.6 laps down at some point, but through the intervention of the safety cars and some smart strategy calls, by the time we got to the last restart, I think he was 7th on the road. And then, to make that recovery from being over a lap down, like you just never can at SVG, particularly when the conditions are inclement. But really encouraging signs for Walkinshaw Andretti United. Considering they won the biggest prize at the end of last year's championship, with the Bathurst 1000 going the way of himself and Lee Holdsworth. I was pretty impressed by the Grove Racing pace in the 26 car for David Reynolds at times, but the consistency not quite there. Chaz is leading the championship, leaving Sydney Motorsport Park. It's the first time he's ever led the championship, so that's something pretty special for the Mobil 1 Optus Racing driver. Nick Percat returning to the Walkinshaw family for the first time since he raced in one of their 3rd and 4th cars there in the mid 20 teens. So good to see him back there, and he was very competitive up until he had that incident midway through the second race on Sunday. But yeah, Tickford, not quite sure what's going on there. But if we cast our minds back to last year, their performances were sort of all over the shop at Sydney Motorsport Park. Just could not get the cars switched on and consistent. And it wasn't just Cam's car; it was all 3 cars in that stable last year, and it would appear it was all 4 cars in that stable in the 2022 edition.
Yeah, I don't think it's their favourite circuit. It'll be interesting to see like how things change, if they change, when they head on down to Symmons Plains in a couple of weeks time, and then of course straight after that they'll head out to Albert Park. But I thought it was okay. I believe the ratings were extremely good once again. So obviously people have been hanging out for some motorsport, so that was good. That's both on Channel 7 and also on Foxtel as well. So so that was a good weekend. As I said, we were down at we went down to Geelong to the revival, the Geelong, what used to be called the speed trials, and that was a lot of fun. We went down on the Doc and I went down on the Sunday. And lots of interesting cars there, great atmosphere. The interesting thing, if you saw the program on Tuesday night, we spoke to one of the local councillors there, Councillor Petrolhead, as she calls herself. She is very, very keen. A number of the councillors are very keen there to discussion back on the rails again regarding the possibility of some sort of motorsport complex in the Avalon area. As they've said, they've got the land, the will is there, the demand is there from the people. They're just looking to make it happen. So at the moment, their priority is to work on a national motoring museum. Possibly they're hoping to use the Ford, at least some part of the old Ford factory, as some sort of museum. But they would really like to focus more attention on motoring and motorsport down there, because, as you were saying, that was Councillor Kiley. Kiley was saying that the motoring is a very big part of the town's history, and they're very keen to throw their weight behind other motorsport events in the future. So that was good news. Once again, crowd was a bit disappointing, but I suppose they had all sorts of things to play with at Geelong. It was a massive weekend. They had the Foo Fighters on Friday night, the revival on the weekend, Midnight Oil on Saturday night, and then the Nitro Circus rolled into Cardinia Park on once the Foo Fighters moved out, the Nitro Circus moved in. So yeah, very, very busy time down Geelong. They don't know what's hit them.
If for a second, Brett, I thought your discussions were going to turn to the abortive attempts, or the unspoken myth or rumours about a Geelong street race supercars event that were
that was a long
making
time
their way
ago,
around the
wasn't
track back in the 80s and 90s. But then it also reared its head when the former paparazzi lawyer, whose name escapes me, former paparazzo, who was the mayor of Geelong, who talked about a potential V8 supercar street race in Geelong. I mean, the foreshore of Geelong would be perfect for it. It'd be a replacement for the Wellington street race we no longer have.
Yeah, just as probably about as narrow, but look, I think it would be fantastic down there. I mean, in terms of the people that came down, there was a reasonable crowd, but it was not what it used to be. I mean, as I said, we hadn't been down for a long, long time. We used to go down quite regularly back in the days when it was just the speed trials. Gary Grant was running it back in those days, and the crowds were absolutely huge. The foreshores were packed, and you had a lot of big names too. You had people like Alan Jones, Sterling Moss, Johnny Herbert, lots of the supercar touring car drivers of the day would turn up. You had Craig Lowndes running his Cortina there, and lots of top names would go down there. But they're sort of slowly building it up again. It's more than just a race now. More than just a motorsport event now. There were car shows. There was very expensive food trucks. I mean, if you wanted I got very excited. I saw Texas barbecue, and I went, oh, terrific! And Texas barbecue, beef brisket roll, $24. So we had some
prices,
chips instead.
Yeah. Well, you know how much oil costs in Texas right now. It's gone to past $4 a gallon for gasoline.
Yeah, well, I think that they must have fried the meat in it or something, because it's $24 for a roast beef roll. I think it was probably going over the top. What else is happening? That's right. In terms of speedway, lots of local speedway happening. But talking of Eastern Creek, they've weather permitting, they'll finally get the brand new Eastern Creek Speedway up and running on the weekend. The replacement for Parramatta up in Sydney. Yeah, so I haven't seen the forecast, but I mean, when you look at the weather they've had, they've cancelled it once already, and they're going to bring it back again. But it will be that'll be a huge boost, potentially a huge boost to the sport in Sydney. Although Parramatta was sort of closer to town, but this is a nice new track, and it'd be nice. It'd be very nice if we had something like that in Melbourne as well. I mean, because apart from us, Avalon's the closest thing we've got into a speedway in Melbourne. So it'd be nice to have something a bit closer, because I think that's, once again, it's a bit like drag racing. It's the sleeping giant of motorsport. If you had somewhere sort of accessible and comfortable, easy to get to, with some of the big sprint car races, so they'd have huge fields.
Speedway, still the only motorsport I pay my own money to go and watch.
Yeah, I think that's very true for a lot of people. I mean, you go to if you want to catch up with people from the world of motorsport, or all sorts of levels and all sorts of people, just head to sort of a sprint car meeting at Avalon at any stage, especially the big ones. And coming up fairly soon will be the Good Friday, the Easter Sprint Car Trail, and the Good Friday meeting is always a huge meeting. The Boxing Day meeting is massive as well, and you go along there, and you'll see all your supercar drivers will be down there, and as you say, people like Dave and lots of our friends, lots of officials, all head out to Avalon, but. Which is great, but it doesn't probably get the coverage that it really should.
So guys, I'm getting a low battery warning on my phone, so I'm going to have to call it quits for the evening. But thank you very much for having me again. Shout out to all of the hardworking motorsport enthusiasts that are out there tuned in. I've got a big 3 more days at the VHRR historic Phillip Island. So I just want to say a quick shout out to all of the hardworking volunteer officials that will be dedicating their time to pulling off the biggest historic motor racing festival in the Southern Hemisphere once again at Phillip Island. So I'll catch you guys next week.
Yeah, I'll probably see you down there. I'm heading down tomorrow, so catch you then, Dave.
See you guys.
See you later. Okay, so that's live from Phillip Island. That was Dave. Someone mentioned about whether we were doing a live stream from Phillip Island. No, not at this stage. I was thinking about trying to do something like we did at Sandown. Got the crew down there, but haven't had time to sort of organise it as yet, and I'm not sure whether we're going to be fairly busy over the 3 days. But anyway, yes, as Paul's saying, Avalon got washed out by the weather, so yeah, the Good Friday is the next big meeting down at Avalon. So once again, keep our fingers crossed for that. Okay, so as Doc isn't here, I better say something about Moto GP. Didn't catch the race because it was on at some ungodly hour of the morning, but from all reports, a very emotional win to Bastianini in the for Grassini Racing. Fausto Grassini passed away last year, and this was sort of the first win for the team for a long time, and so very emotional situation, and a lot of people very happy for that result. Jack Miller unfortunately retired fairly early with mechanical problems in the race, and Remy Gardner sort of ran around towards the rear of the field, but managed to get up to 15th place and has picked up a championship point. So, did any of you guys watch it? Pete or Chris, did you see any of it at all?
Unfortunately, no.
Yeah, it was on such a terrible.
If I watched everything, I wouldn't get any sleep.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, someone with all the gear in terms of the live stream. Someone with the gear has to work Saturday and Sunday. Friday's free for streams. Okay, I'll have a word with you off cameras, just Stuart, and see. We might pull together something very quickly for tomorrow or late tomorrow afternoon or something if we can. But we hadn't planned anything. But okay, so Pete, any updates from your end? Any Formula One news or anything you'd like to raise?
Just that Charles Leclerc, at the moment, the last time I looked, he was topping the timesheets in the morning session.
Yes, it was. I mean, we've seen Ferrari. I mean, they traditionally go very, very well in the pre-season test, and then perhaps not so well in the racing. I think fingers crossed this year. That would be the icing on the cake especially for Melbourne. I mean, to be able to go after the first race at Bahrain, to be able to go to Melbourne and say that okay, it's not just a shootout between Mercedes and Red Bull, but Ferrari, the great Ferrari, is back in town as well. And if you could add McLaren to that as well, and particularly with Dan Ricciardo. Yeah, I mean, if it's looking like an exciting, potentially a very exciting Formula One season ahead. So looking forward to it. So okay, we'll just have a look and see there. Yeah, so I think that's about probably all we've got time for this week. As I said, next week on the program, if you want, Nathan Hearn, Tuesday night on Channel 31 at 8 o'clock, the new time, or earlier time of 8 o'clock. Nathan Hearn came into the studio last week. And by the way, if you want to watch us record, basically, I mean, really mess your brain up like ours is messed up. You can watch us record the show live as per usual. We're putting that only on Facebook and we're not keeping it up there. So basically, if you want to watch the interview live, if you want to watch the music live and all the chaos that goes on behind the scenes, that comes on a little bit, like show starts at 9, but we flick in a bit earlier now, and and you can watch behind the scenes how we set up and all the good and the bad that we do over that time. And our guest in the studio this Tuesday night will be Barry Rogers from Gary Rogers Motorsport. So it's going to be a packed show again. We've got so much to get through, and we've only got 24 and a half minutes to do it. So that's why we've got this time as well. Okay, so if that's all everybody's got, we'll see some of you down at Phillip Island on the weekend. Keep an eye out on the Facebook page, probably in particular, and we'll see about, and also on YouTube. If you haven't liked and subscribed yet, please do so on the YouTube page. It's very important. Subscriptions, likes, and comments, and all of those things go a long way with the algorithm for YouTube to help promote the channel. And yeah, so that would be great. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe. And that way, click the notification bell. That way you can be informed if we do something live at some stage tomorrow. And we might. It might just be sort of me waving the phone around like I did at Geelong. But yeah, we'll do something. Okay, so to everybody there, Box, hoping to go to Heartland Speedway. Heartland, where is Heartland? Box, let us know before we go off the air. I'm not sure where Heartland Speedway is. Russell could probably tell us as well. Russell heading down the island. Yes, Russell, we'll catch you at the island. We saw you down there last year as well. As Roy is saying, anyone into pre-war cars, that's at Kalorama, and as Paul Vander Acker said as well, that's what Stuart was talking about, was the Steam Rail Open Weekend at Newport Rail. That's when we were going down to Geelong. He was saying if he wasn't heading down to the island over the weekend, that's where he would have been. So yeah, good stuff. Oh, okay, it's Moama. Okay, so that's a bit of a drive. It'd be a nice area up there. I think it'd be a good weekend to go up and a bit of speedway around the Moama area.
Moama near Echuca, yeah, that's it.
Yeah, very very nice near on the river and Yarrawonga and all that sort of area. Some nice places to stay. Some nice some good places up there. So that'll be so enjoy your weekend up there, Box. And we'll see you down at Phillip Island. We'll see you on Tuesday night, 8 o'clock on Channel 31 for In Pit Lane. Also, straight afterwards, you can watch us on demand around Australia and around the world on the In Pit Lane YouTube channel. That's 8:30 on demand on the YouTube channel. And we'll see you at the same time next week here on Full Course Yellow, 9 o'clock, Thursday night, live right across wherever it is right across. Okay, so thanks for joining us, and from Pete, Chris and myself and everyone, Dave and everybody else, we'll see you next week. Until then, thanks for joining us, everyone. Bye for now.